Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Steven Universe Retrospectives, and today we're going to be discussing episodes 25 and 26 of Steven Universe, Mirror Gem and Ocean Gem. Now, like I mentioned in the last Steven Universe video, these episodes are technically a two-parter. As such, while I will go over the plots of the episodes in my usual manner, when I get to my thoughts on both episodes, I'm going to treat them both as if they're one and the same. So, yeah, I'm just giving you a heads up for that. But with that being said, how exactly are these episodes considered a two-parter? Well, first let's talk about what happens in Mirror Gym. In this case, at the beginning of the episode, Steven wants to hang out with Connie, but she's got tennis practice. Though she makes a comment that she'll have plenty of time to hang out with Steven the next day because she's starting summer vacation. Steven wonders what the hell summer vacation is, and Connie has to explain that it's something that kids do to have a break from school. And then Steven asks what the hell school is, because it turns out he's never gone to school. As such, Connie explains all these technical stuff about school, about chalkboards, having desks, about how autonomy, or anatomy, etc. So Steven, being Steven, ends up getting curious about it and tries to replicate it with Pearl's help. Ultimately, it's just a pile of random garbage, but Steven really has no idea how to turn this pile of random garbage into something that he can learn and be taught. However, when Pearl learns that Steven wants to be taught lessons, she thinks she has the perfect item to help him out. As such, doing that weird stance and war cry or whatever, she ends up pulling an item out from Pearl. In this case, a mirror. This mirror is supposed to be an ancient gem artifact that can essentially show whoever owns it anything that's been reflected in its surface. As such, she tries to get it to show Steven something called a galaxy warp, but nothing ends up coming. And as she keeps asking questions, it lies dormant and just acts like a regular mirror. As such, she thinks that maybe it's just busted, and so Steven ends up taking it and decides, well, school's out then, and decides to go out on his own summer vacation, taking the mirror with him, while Pearl decides to turn the pile of random crap into a symmetrical pile. As such, Steven ends up running out. He runs into Sadie and Lars, who are getting ready to who are setting up these stands for the Big Donut. No, these tables for the Big Donut for essentially the Beach City's summer tourism season. And Steven is just going around having fun. And after talking with Lars and Sadie, he thinks that he wants to find his own beach summer fun buddy, and so he makes the brilliant decision to walk backwards using the mirror to show where he is, and so that he can find his own beach summer fun bud. However, doing this ends up getting him in the direct path of the mayor's van. And when he does, the mirror suddenly reacts and tells Steven to look where he's going, taking from him, just essentially repeating what Lars said earlier. And this causes Steven to stop, and it does yell out no, with the van stopping and the mayor telling Steven to watch where he's going before driving off. Steven sees what the mirror did and realizes that it can talk, and using various phrases that Steven and other people have said, it begins forming coherent sentences and actually starts answering Steven's questions, like, you can talk, what's a mirror, what's being a mirror like, and it's just clear that they're forming a little rapport. And it's clear that the mirror does have some form of a sense of humor, as Steven and the mirror go to this speech that Mayor Dewey is giving, and he keeps making wind innuendos, and so Steven, just to kind of be funny, makes a fart sound effect, and the mirror just keeps replaying it over and over as he keeps talking. So Steven, the mirror, and the collective crowd end up having a ball. After that, we don't see really much of the episode as it cuts ahead to the evening, but based on Steven's reactions, it's clear that he and the mirror have been having fun and enjoying themselves, and so the mirror, using Steven's various reactions, does express that it likes hanging out with Steven, and that it considers him a friend, and so he thinks, oh, this is awesome, I gotta show the gems, and the mirror's reaction is to repeat Steven's no from earlier. When Steven keeps insisting, no, they'll like you, it just keeps repeating it. Steven just initially brushes this off and goes back to his house, where we see Pearl's symmetrical crap pile. But Steven does try showcasing the mirror to the group, only it doesn't seem to be reacting. Steven, of course, is wondering what the hell, and he initially does pull the mirror aside and starts talking with it, and so talking with it, saying, "Come on, it's okay, you can do this. I trust you. You won't be hurt." And the gems, well, they believe Steven when he says that he got the mirror to work, but while Steven is talking to the mirror, it does react and starts joking around with Steven again, and actually again reacts to him, even stating that it's only doing this because it's just doing it for Steven. And as Steven is laughing away, the gems kind of look a little shocked. After all, the mirror's only purpose is to show like past events, things that it has seen, not hold entire conversations. And so the gems, realizing that something's a bit up with the mirror, start thinking that maybe it's a bit dangerous and decide that maybe they should take it back. And so as the gems go to Steven trying to get the mirror away from him, well, the mirror doesn't want to go, continually repeating Steven's no and not wanting and saying, and pretty much just showcasing it doesn't want to be taken by the gems. However, Garnet is not taking that no for an answer and keeps telling Steven, "You gotta give it to me, it's dangerous." And Steven keeps saying, no, it doesn't want to go with you, it wants to stay with me. And he gets backing away. He actually gets backed, I'm not going to say into a corner, he gets backed over the door, but Garnet keeps reaching in the mirror and says, "Steven, you have to give it to me, don't make me take it from you." And as the mirror keeps yelling, "No, no, no," Steven finally gets fed up and says, "It doesn't want to go with you." And he ends up not only smacking her hand aside, but accidentally smacks her face and knocking off her sunglasses. And when we see Garnet's face without them, she looks certifiably pissed. The sight of which causes Steven to yell and run away screaming, "I'm sorry." As such, Garnet says that Steven's in trouble, puts her glasses back on, and she and the gems end up getting out of the beach house, but Steven's already gone, so they spread out. In the meantime, Steven's behind a rock and talking with the mirror and wants to know why the gems are after it, what does it want, but the mirror actually begins using the reflections it's seen to form more elaborate statements, very much just saying, "Let me out." Steven doesn't understand what this means, and he wants to know how he can help it. And so using its own magical powers, it showcases Steven that if he wants to help it, he needs to take the gem stone from off the back of the mirror. Because on the back of the mirror, that looks like a blue teardrop stone with a crack through it. As such, Steven decides that he's going to try and listen, and he does try, and he turns the mirror over and tries pulling the gemstone off. And as he does this, the water from the ocean begins starting to go to him, forming what looks like a weird star-shaped pentagram or whatever. Not really a pentagram, but some weird markings on the ground surrounding Steven, and it just keeps getting more accentuated as he pulls on the gem, until finally he manages to rip it off, which in turn shatters the mirror and causes the water to just splash away. At which point the gem glows, floats away, and reforms into a new gem. And I don't mean like a gemstone, I mean like garnet, amethyst, and pearl. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the introduction of a brand new character to the series, Lapis Lazuli. And I like her, and what I do like is, first off, her appearance and her when we first actually meet her in person. In this case, our initial design, it looks like, I don't want to say frail, but it does look very innocent. Her main outfit when we first see her is essentially a regular top. It's just a top with a bare back and a long skirt. As such, she doesn't really look like a warrior like the gems. She just more looks like just a plain, like an average girl, so to speak. Which, yeah, I do kind of like. Essentially, it looks kind of innocent. And when she first talks using her own voice, she sounds actually kind of sweet and calm and demure. When she first sees Steven, she said, "Thank you. You actually talked to me. Are you actually a crystal gem? But why would you help me?" I do like that, and especially those two factors work together to offset what we see immediately after. Because once Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl see Lapis there, they try charging forward, and Steven tries stopping them, saying no, she's a gem, only for Lapis to suddenly get pissed, and we start to see more of Lapis's own abilities, as it turns out she has aquakinesis, which explains why the water was pooling to Steven as he was pulling her gem off of the mirror. And with her powers, she creates a giant fist and yells at and tries to smash down the gems. In the meantime, she's just yelling at them, saying, "You knew I was in there the whole time, and you never even cared who I was. I'm Lapis Lazuli, and you're not going to control me anymore." As such, while the crystal gems are trying to scatter, Lapis tries to open a pathway in the water and tells Steven they have to run, but Steven doesn't really want to run away, because he's confused, he doesn't know what's going on. As such, Lapis, realizing that Steven's not going anywhere, just kind of looks defeated, but tells Steven not to trust the gems before she's swept away in the tides and disappears. As such, the gems are glad that Steven's okay, but unfortunately Lapis got away, and angry at what Steven did, Garnet immediately grounds Steven, which leads us into Ocean Gem, as it's the next day and Steven's reacting to the fact that he's been grounded. However, as the gems are chewing Steven out, Connie ends up Connie doesn't come by, but Greg ends up coming by the house, and he says the gems need to see something, and it turns out, Lapis has been busy, as the gems go out to the beach, to Beach City's beach, and find that the ocean has dried up, and nobody knows what the hell's going on. At this point, Connie is there, and they all see it, and the gems quickly realize that this is Lapis's doing, but they don't really know what to do. As such, Steven, realizing that this is kind of indirectly his fault, decides that he needs to go do something. As such, he packs a bag of his stuff to go and face Lapis, but everybody makes it clear that if Steven's going to do this, he's not going to go alone, and Greg, Connie, and even Lion all volunteer to join. As such, the gems, kind of inspired by Steven's courage, unground him and decide to go with him. What I like is that Steven and Connie are riding on Lion, while Garnet, Amethyst Pearl, and Greg are riding in Greg's van, which is nice. We don't really see much of the journey of them all talking, just bits here and there. But there is one funny scene where Greg puts on one of his songs in his van, and as he asks Garnet, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Garnet just tucks and rolls, and for the rest of the trip, she's just riding outside the van. I love it. But we see both groups going through a lot of areas of the ocean, going down to deeper crevices that are now just dried up. But pretty much as they're walking, and as day turns to night, and they're further along, with Pearl taking over driving from Greg, Steven is lamenting how he doesn't think it's right for gems to fight other gems. And it's here that the crystal gems drop a bombshell. It turns out that they've always been fighting other gems. In Pearl's own words, not all gems are nice, so to speak. Not all gems are good. And a prime example of that are the monsters. It turns out that those monsters that the group faces on a regular basis, they are gems, which, as I mentioned in the last video, if you pay attention, you can notice, especially with Centipedal. That's because, as I mentioned, when Centipedal got released from her bubble, she wound up almost briefly taking on a humanoid form before reverting to her monster form. But but the thing is, that little detail, that's another bombshell. You see, when I first watched these episodes, I was initially able to put together that the monsters were gems, but I originally thought that they were like animals, so to speak. Like, they were like gem animals, and they just operated differently from regular gems. Well, it turns out that the monsters they face, they were once like Garnet, Amethyst, Pearl, and even Lapis. They were humanoid. They had thoughts and opinions, and could talk and rationalize and so forth. But something happened to them. Something that, as Pearl says, corrupted them, changed them. At this point, they are no longer the gems they once were. They are feral. They're rapid. They are now corruptions of what they used to be, and are now threats to everyone and themselves, which is why they bubble them. Because, unfortunately, if they don't bubble them, they just have to keep doing damage, and until they can find a way to heal them, the best place for them is in the temple. Excuse me one second. Apologies, puppy emergency. Yeah, like I said, corrupted, monstrous, and again, puppy emergency. So yeah, like I said, corrupted gems and monstrosities. Something happened to them, and now they're just kind of monsters. They're threats to everyone and themselves. So that's so the like I said, temple is the best place for them. However, before the gems can further elaborate on this, they end up finding where all the water in the ocean went, into a giant pillar. For whatever the reason, what this pillar is or why it's here, the gems don't know. The group doesn't know. But when they get off their respectable their various forms of transportation, they go to examine it, and Lapis realizes they're there and politely tells them to get lost. By which I mean she yells at them. Steven does try and reason with her and tell her, come on, we're beats of our fun buds, but Lapis still isn't hearing of it. And one thing I do like is that while she is clearly angry at Steven for siding with the Crystal Gems, she does clearly still like him and still wants to be his friend, because she's also saddened by the fact that Steven keeps asking, why are you fighting us? We can help you. Because she realizes, you don't understand anything, do you? Regardless, she does want to be left alone, and when Steven doesn't take no for an answer, she ends up deciding to fight back. In this case, creating water copies of each of the crystal gems, which I like because I'm a sucker for mirror fights. As such, Steven, Connie, and Greg end up hiding while Garnet, Amethyst, Pearl, and Lion face off against the water duplicates. But the battle isn't exactly favorable. I wouldn't say the gems are losing, but they're not making any headway either. Either the copies are just as powerful as the originals, have abilities they don't have. 1 second. Again, puppy emergency. I apologize. These are becoming the norm here. Anyway, yeah, like I said, the copies are either just as strong as them, or have abilities they don't have, or even if they do defeat them, that just makes them more powerful in various regards. In this case, like in the case of Pearl, where she managed to split her copy in two, and it just resulted in creating two copies. Unfortunately, in terms of the Steven copy, Lion does try fighting it, but all it does is get Lion launched into Greg's van. And when Steven and Connie go to get revenge, it nearly drowns them. Thankfully, Greg is able to save Steven and Connie by running into the duplicate, but in response, it ends up chucking the van like at least a yard away with Greg still inside. And he does survive, but he ends up getting a broken leg. As such, Steven finally has had enough of this and keeps telling Lapis he doesn't want to fight. The duplicate doesn't listen and tries hitting him with a water missile or projectile or whatever. But Steven just yells out, "I said I don't want to fight!" And as the water almost hits him, he ends up summoning his shield, and the hit from the water on the shield ends up causing a vibration that ends up causing each of the mirror duplicates to essentially fall apart. As such, Steven finally goes up to the pillar and says, "Lapis, I'm coming up to see you, so please don't drown me." And so Steven ends up going in, and Lapis does end up letting him up, though she clearly is playing cautious, and even when she brings him to the top of the tower, she keeps him in a bubble. Well, his head out so he can still breathe, but clearly keeping him capacitated for a while. As such, Steven ends up finally talking to Lapis and wants to know why she's doing this, because what she's doing is honestly certifiably insane. And Lapis reveals she just doesn't want to be here anymore. She reveals that while the crystal gems ultimately don't care about other gems. They don't really care about the affairs of other gems. They only care about the Earth. But Lapis, she does not give two shits about the Earth. She just wants to go home. Unfortunately, she's not fully capable. Remember the crack I mentioned on the gem earlier? Well, like with Amethyst about a couple episodes ago, it's having an adverse effect on Lapis. Down! Excuse me, 1 second. In this case, we actually do see it affect her appearance, because something I neglected to mention when she first appeared is that her colors look a little muted, so to speak, and her eyes are kind of glazed over. They don't actually look like eyes, more like saucers than anything. And as a result of this, and it turns out that this is also having an effect on her abilities, because normally she would just be able to leave the planet whenever she wants. but unfortunately, because of the crack, those abilities are kind of muted, meaning that she's kind of stuck, and the reason why she's been trying to steal the ocean is because she wants to make a pillar strong enough to be able to reach her home, which, unfortunately, she's beginning to realize is not a viable option. However, Steven thinks he has a solution to this. As he mentions, he has healing powers, and so Lapis actually a little surprised by this, but Steven does demonstrate as he licks his hand and slaps it on her gem, which is located on her back. She naturally does shiver from it because there's no way the process is not gross. But the process does work, as her gem immediately repairs itself, like with Amethyst, and upon repairing itself, she ends up growing 2 water wings. Her color returns in full, and her eyes go back to normal. As such, she happily thanks Steven. Steven says, "No prob, Bob." And what I love in this little interaction is it showcases Lapis is very big. So it showcases how well Lapis handles social interactions, because she has no idea that "no prob, Bob" is just a saying. And as a result, she just kind of says, "Well, bye," and just flies away. As a result, the ocean is ultimately restored, though because Lapis didn't just properly put it back, it just causes the pillar that she was on to suddenly collapse, with, Steven on top of it, so, that's kind of a thing. Thankfully, Steven is saved by the intervention of Connie and Lion, and the ocean is ultimately put back. Everybody in Beach City is thankfully happy. The world is saved. Steven is rejoicing. Well, Greg still has a broken leg, and the van is ultimately trashed, with Pearl telling Greg that, "What's the thing you say about the hot dogs and the pork chops?" But by the end of the episode, Garnet and Pearl lament the fact that Lapis got off planet, and they begin talking about how they don't really know what this means for them in the future. So the episode kind of ends with them just kind of pondering that, while Steven wishes Lapis luck wherever she is. So yeah, that's about it. Apologies for puppy interruptions, but what did I think of this 2-parter? I actually really liked it. What I do like is how it initially starts. It initially starts kind of like any other episode in the series, with Steven just doing Steven-y things. Like I said, this whole thing got started because Steven was curious about school and wanted to replicate it without really knowing what the hell it was. As such, we get some nice little antics in the first episode with Steven in the mirror, and him learning about the quirky little magical thing with it. But what I do like is that as the episode goes on, you and you see the gem's reaction to the mirror being able to talk to Steven. You actually do see more of Steven's you actually see kind of the darker side to what the gems do. As when the gems realize that the mirror is talking back to Steven, they act a bit more cold. They act a bit more worried. They act different towards Steven and the mirror. And as Steven continually insists that they not touch it, you start seeing them get a little bit more pushy, until eventually when Steven does fight back, they actually start pursuing him. It's clear that there's something not right. And then when you later learn that that in reality the mirror was powered by a gem who was using said mirror to communicate with the outside world, yeah, it's kind of a big what the fuck kind of thing, isn't it? Especially when you see said gem immediately display her rage about being trapped in said mirror, with the second episode showcasing just how much of a threat she truly is. Which again, I like how her initial appearance and soft-spoken voice offsets just how much of an angry person she ultimately is. I love that reveal with Lapis. So, I do like that. And I think another thing that I like about the episode is, again, the reveal of Lapis as the villain. Which, because one of the things that I've heard described about Steven Universe is that it's kind of structured like a video game, which was done on purpose. And in a way, I could kind of see that. With most of the episodes prior to this one, we've seen the gems going after just like standard monsters, just traps, puzzles, dungeons, etc. It's like different levels in a video game, with the monsters themselves being like just standard enemies or mini bosses that the gems have to take down. But this episode, instead of dealing with just an average monster, it's a full-blown gem. One who is smart, one who can think, and one who isn't just destroying because, oh, monster. No, she has a clear goal in mind, and unlike the monsters that we've seen prior, who just have who just are only threats to the immediate area, Lapis is exceedingly powerful, as we see demonstrated with her aquakinesis and the fact that she immediately dries up the whole ocean just so she can use the accumulated water to form a tower to get off of Earth. It's actually really interesting because it really does set up that she is not just a standard creature that the gems can just hit enough times until she falls over. She is smart, she is powerful, and if the gems want to beat her, they need to think of a new strategy. And unfortunately, it won't. Fortunately, smacking the monster until it eventually dies is not going to be a viable option. And what I do like is that as the episode goes on, you see more of Lapis's abilities. Even with her gem cracked, she can do a lot of shit. She can form giant water hands. She can create giant towers. She can spread her consciousness through the water to act as a surrogate for her to speak through. Hence, when she actually does talk to Steven when the group arrives at her giant tower, or when she creates the water copies to fight the gems. I like that because it showcases not only her range of abilities, but just how much of a threat she truly is, and that that she's more than just a standard monster. I like that. It really does well in showcasing her as a viable threat. And on top of that, another thing that I think works, and again, what I do like too, is that since she isn't just a standard monster, she has a character. Here's the thing. While her actions in the episode ultimately make her the antagonist, because she dries up the ocean, and anytime when the gems try to stop her, she fights back and makes it clear, I'm not doing what you want. I'm taking all this from me. She's not doing it because she wants to hurt the Earth. No, she doesn't give a damn about the Earth. She makes that abundantly clear. But all she wants to do is get home. She just wants to get off planet. But and as a result, and the thing is, that motivation is not inherently malicious. She does have clear motivations for it's actually rather sympathetic, and it's that sympathy that ultimately causes Steven to want to help her, because again, they spend a good part of the first half of this two-parter bonding, and based on what we've seen here, we do see the different sides of Lapis. While there is an anger there, a great righteous fury from what happened to her, at the same time there is a kindness to her, and the thing is, throughout the episode, it's clear that despite Steven being on the opposite side, so to speak, she still cares about him. Like I said, when Steven went to confront her, while she did tell him initially to piss off, she actually did seem saddened that he wasn't on her side, that he wasn't with her, that he wasn't believing her, and that when he kept asking questions, she's like, you really don't understand, do you? Just go. Like, it's clear that her actions towards Steven weren't just fueled by anger at what happened to her, but also heartbreak to a degree. Hence why she kept reacting the way she did, and why she kept fighting back. And ultimately, why she was willing to talk to Steven. Even, when she was in the mirror, keep in mind that she did not want to do her little parlor tricks for the crystal gems. She only did it for Steven. She even said so herself. As a result, and throughout the episode, you kind of see why. As she said, Steven was the first person to help her. He didn't just say, do this thing for me. He actually appreciated her being an individual, doing what she wanted, not just having fun, joking around. He actually was a friend to her, and when she asked for help, he helped her. The crystal gems, despite what they want, despite their attitude, despite them protecting the Earth, they treat her like the enemy. The gems do state that not all gems are good, and with minor spoilers, later episodes do showcase that there are bad gems out there, and there's a viable reason for why the crystal gems were not exactly happy with the fact that the mirror was talking. But at the very least, it also does explain more of why Lapis is not willing to trust them, because they prioritize the Earth over their own people. And thus, with the knowledge that Lapis was in the mirror, or with Lapis knowing that they knew she was in the mirror, of course she'd be pissed at them. They knew she was there the whole time, yet did nothing to help her. And honestly, there's a dark reality to that. Because this is also another example of kind of of just part of how how gems work. Like, we've seen something like this before in the series. Remember back to the labyrinth, the one with all the shifting rooms that you could walk in one direction but always end up back in the center? Well, remember how in that episode there was a gemstone at the center of the whole thing? The implication is that that was a similar case to Lapis, a living gem forced to power this great machine against its will, which is part of probably why it looked relaxed when Steven took the gem in that episode. I might have mentioned that. I might not have to go back to either watch the episode or watch the vlog. But the point is, that's kind of a hellish reality. Just to be trapped inside this artifact, forced to do the bidding of whomever wields you, and you have no say in the matter. No, it actually makes sense why Lapis would react the way she did. And it also showcases kind of a darker side to our heroes. Because before this, while the gems have had their quirks and like I said, haven't really tried to socialize the people of Beach City, one thing you could easily say is that they were the good guys, so to speak. They protected people from monsters. They helped where they could. They prioritized civilians over trying to over defending the monster at certain points. But here you see a darker reality when they meet another one of their kind and they just keep her trapped. She isn't corrupted. They just keep her there because she could be a potential threat. Even at the end of the episode, when Lapis gets off planet, Pearl and Garnet kind of wonder what this could mean. That doing this could bite them in the ass later. It's actually kind of a dark reality that kind of casts a lot of shadows on all the things they've done. And kind of speaking about gems uses weapons, I mentioned this back in the Together Breakfast episode, but is that what that scroll was? Because of all the monsters that the gems have fought throughout the series have been corrupted gems, was the scroll a gem too? If so, why did Garnet have to burn it? I don't get that one. How was it able to possess a living thing? How was it able to possess a scroll? How was it able to possess a breakfast? I don't know. I don't get it. That one is the only part that doesn't really make sense to me. But again, it does kind of, like I said, it casts down on everything they do, while also kind of sowing the seeds for later stories. In the case of Lapis, like I said, we do see that her motivation isn't entirely selfish. She just wants to go home, and her anger at the gems is easily justified because, again, trapped in the mirror for God knows how long. But ultimately, what keeps you from hating her is that you do see the tortured soul in her, and like I said, we spent a good chunk of the Mirror Gem episode getting to know her, seeing her joking around with Steven and having fun. Doing stuff for him just because she trusted him. And even at the end, and throughout both episodes, you do see that Lapis wants to still be friends with Steven. It's why she looks so sad when Steven is fighting against her, when he doesn't side with her immediately, and we even see that when she finally does talk to him. She actually is honest with him. She treats him honestly. And she says, I don't care about this place, I just want to go home. But it's ultimately Steven, but what I like is that Steven actually does talk her down. He does tell her, look, I understand, you want to go home, but the ocean's part of my home and I have to put it back. You're hurting my home. Which is what when Lapis says, look, I just need to use it to get off the planet, but it's not big enough, which is when Steven heals her gem. I like that. It's a different solution, and it's another cornerstone of Steven's character. Steven is, like I said, Steven is the rational one. He's the guy that will try to solve a problem with other ways than just hitting it until it falls down. In this case, we see the side of Steven that I call Steven the pacifist. Now, pacifism can easily be considered a dirty word because it can be lumped in with cowardice, but a pacifist is not someone who refuses not to fight. A pacifist is someone who knows when to fight. And Steven is a good example of a true pacifist. He fights when he needs to, but if he can find another solution to to end a battle, he will find it. In as early as this episode, we see that he doesn't treat Lapis as the enemy. He treats her like a person. He listens to her. He talks to her. And when he learns why she's doing the things she's doing, why she's going to the extreme she does, rather than say, you're wrong and I have to stop you, he instead helps her. He heals her gem. He says, you, and pretty much just says, you can go. He does what the other crystal gems didn't. He treats her as a friend. And Lapis reciprocates that. She says thank you and flies away. Now, admittedly, she could have put the ocean back before she did, but, beggars can't be choosers. But it's a good example of Steven's character and how it furthers along. Especially when Steven is, and again, it shows more of Steven's maturity as when Lapis does take the ocean, he immediately realizes, I kind of caused this, I should be the one to fix it. So I like that. I do like that. And on the note of Lapis Lazuli, this is not, just kind of spoilers, but this is not her last appearance. And she does have her own character arcs later on. But her anger, her focus, and the year she spent trapped in the mirror, they do become a cornerstone for her character later on. Especially her relationship with Steven. Because spoiler warning, her antagonism toward the Crystal Gems doesn't just go away like that. She still holds a very deep grudge for them in later appearances, but Steven is her friend, so she does still try to be there for him. And so that friendship becomes a bit of a cornerstone for her character. I'm not going to say how, we still got later episodes to talk about that, but I do like how it starts here. We get the beginnings of a character who starts as the enemy, but through a relationship with Steven, we see kind of the kind soul beneath, as well as just a person who's suffering and just needs to be healed. I like that. I do like that. And again, in terms of other character development, going back to the end, we see more of that we see Pearl and Garnet talking about how Lapis got off planet and what this could possibly mean. And yeah, based on the way Lapis talked and with what Pearl said that not all gems are good, there's a hint that there is going to be bigger threats to come. And basically, Lapis leaving planet is might have opened the floodgates a little. So I like that. It hints at future storylines while still having a strong one to support them. In this case, introducing a new gem who it reveals new implications, has her own character arc that gets built on later, has a good character that's easily set up in this one, does a good job at helping further along other characters and their backstories, basically their journeys. Overall, Mirror Gem and Ocean Gem, I think, are good episodes. They do a good job at establishing Lapis, seeing Steven fight for her, showcasing her motivations for why she's doing what she's doing. Ultimately, does set the building blocks for later storylines for both Steven, Lapis, and the gems as a whole, and the show as a whole. It has some great action with Lapis and showcasing her powers, and the resolution, I think, is nice, different but unique, and definitely still has a satisfying end, especially with Steven and Lapis still showcasing that they're friends, and ultimately the threat being ended by Steven offering a hand of kindness rather than raising a fist of anger. So, yeah, overall, good two-parter, very enjoyable, definitely carried a lot of implications, and definitely sets up stuff for later stories. So, overall, I enjoyed Mirror Gem and Ocean Gem. Fun time all around. Had some good laughs, great action, deeper implications, just overall a good time. So, yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Take care.